Hey everyone, it's Naiharo here, and who am I with?
My name is Octavian, or Chris, if you want a real name.
Sure.
And I am on the design and testing teams for Path of Exile 1 and 2.
Okay, cool. I always say, what's the real name? I feel like Naiharo is the real me, but
Probably Octavian at this point.
Yeah, okay.
I used to stream the game for a living for a while before the company picked me up, so I imagine more people know me by Octavian than anything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what is Path of Exile? If somebody doesn't know, they're coming from another game.
Sure.
What are we talking about here?
So Path of Exile was originally created 10 or 11 years ago by the founders of Grinding Games, who are still with the company. They're still the game directors. And it was inspired heavily by Diablo 2. And it's a top-down action RPG that's set in a grim, dark fantasy universe with hack and slash combat. That's the really broad,
sure,
overview of the game. What we pride ourselves on is the amount of depth, customization, and replayability that the game has. There are players on Steam who have hours in the game that count in the 10, 20,000 range.
Yeah.
I am personally one of them.
Yeah.
You could do that because not only do we release new content for the first game, and the plan is for the second as well, every 3 to 4 months, we also, that content, we always aim to have it have player agency in some way. So for instance, the skill gem thing that I described, since skills are actual items, that means that your skill isn't tied to your class. So Ranger gets more dex and is more easily able to wield a bow and use bow skills. But in theory, if you wanted to, you could take a witch, which is typically a summoning and spellcasting class, and if you were to somehow get the dex that you need to wield bows and use bow skills, you could play a bow witch. Is there a good reason to? I don't know. You figure it out.
Yeah.
You can if you want. And that's kind of our general philosophy. We encourage things to go one way. We make it easier to play a certain way as a certain class, but we very rarely want to just say no.
Right. Yeah, that's also a good tabletop thing for the GM. I cover tabletops as well.
Yeah.
And it's your job is to make problems as a GM. It's up to the players to find the solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's for the first game, there's a support gem. So support gems can go into active skills, and they'll cause the active skill to be modified in some way. Okay. A simple one is you have lightning arrow, which shoots an arrow made of lightning, and you put the support gem extra projectiles in there. Now it's going to shoot 3 arrows made of lightning. So effects like that, but you can get much more complex ones. And there's one that I helped make for PoE1, which is called Mana Forged Arrows. It causes your bow attacks to scale based off of your mana. And that was the whole idea, because you get damage based off your mana costs. So the whole idea was players are going to ramp up their mana costs, and some players did that.
Yeah.
But then some players kept their mana costs super low, and instead just supported a billion different arrows with it. And so they had tons of skills going off all the time. I had no idea that was going to happen, but it's really cool, and I love that players find weird ways to use stuff.
What is some of the feedback that you guys got that you've been able to implement for Path of Exile 2?
One of the biggest changes that we just recently made and is available in this demo that wasn't in previous ones is the addition of the ability to move around while shooting, move around while walking, move around while doing plenty of other actions. So there's to be a little tiny bit technical, there's a kind of animation in our game called an additive animation, which is something that will play on top of other things, and we've extended that capability to things that can actually we've extended it to the point where it can be used with skills that actually damage. So that means that the ranger, while walking, can fire her arrow in any given direction, independently of the movement that you're doing. And it leads to much more fluid gameplay. And a large part of the reason for that is because we wanted to incorporate WASD controls, which is something people have asked for over the years.
Yeah.
And now with PoE2, you can mouse control, you can WASD, you can keyboard, you can controller, keyboard, whatever.
Yeah. And as far as complexity, one of the things actually Brad here, our cameraman, has mentioned, when people ask him hey, what do I do with, gameplay? What should I do with my build? He's go find a video, go find something and follow that. That's my first advice. Anything quality of life wise, you plan on doing anything with that?
So PoE2 we've got a few focus test groups that we've been going through iterations with in order to make sure that the early game tutorialization for players is giving people everything they need to be able to succeed. So hopefully, assuming we've done our job right, that should be doing a much better job of onboarding people,
Okay.
and getting the
Hopefully not
fundamentals
too
of
good
the
a
game.
job. I got to make content on Sunday, so.
No, trust me, there are still gaps. I
Yeah.
am sure there are always gaps.
Okay.
Just actually earlier, we ran into people. So there's a thing that you get right at the start as one of the first quest rewards. It's called an uncut skill gem. Now, skill gems are an item that give you your character's abilities. If you don't have a skill gem equipped, you can't use the ability that it grants. An uncut skill gem lets you pick one of a bunch of different skill gems that you can turn it into.
Okay.
And so you're supposed to get that and pick a skill, and like it tutorializes telling you how to pick one and stuff. Some people accidentally just sell it to the vendor. And if you do that, the game won't let you continue because it says, no, you have to pick a skill before you can continue, but you
Right.
can no longer pick a skill. So yes, there are gaps, but those are the sorts of things that demos are great for helping us sort out.
Yeah.
And we'll just make that unvenderable in the future,
Yeah.
or something along those lines. But then also we have there's another new feature in PoE 2, which one of the biggest complaints in PoE 1 is having to go to outside resources in order to learn things about the game.
Sure.
Go to a wiki, go to a YouTube video, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And what we've done is keywords in the game can now have pop-ups. So when you hover the word like lightning, for instance, it'll pop up telling you that lightning damage is resisted by lightning resistance and can cause shocks. And just short little descriptions of keywords that allow you to better understand the game and what your skills are doing, what your character's doing.
What things from PoE 1 have you guys really looked at and were like, we're going to double down, we're going to triple down on this? Players really like this.
I mean, the absolute fundamentals are still pretty much in place. Like the skill gem and support gem system, that's iconically Path of Exile. That's kept in both games. It's changed somewhat in PoE 2. So in PoE 1, like a chess piece, for instance, will have 6 sockets in it, or up to 6, and that's where you can put your skill and support gems. Whereas in PoE 2, those sockets are tied to your character, they're not tied to your gear, which makes it easier to swap your gear around, which is, better for the leveling experience because it means you find an upgrade, you can just put it on. You don't have to worry about whether it has the right sockets.
Yeah.
But like the fundamental ideas are still there. It's just that we're making changes to improve on them.
Small iterative changes.
Yeah. Sometimes
Or
not so
maybe-
small,
okay.
but yeah.
Okay. Cool. And you, how'd you come to the company? So you used the stream?
Yeah, so I got started streaming Path of Exile 8 years ago, something like that. That's terrifying. I was just kind of going at it. I loved the game, so I was working as a server at the time, the wait staff, and I would spend like any time I was at home, I was playing or streaming PoE. Eventually, I got to the point where I could make it my living, and I got invited onto a couple podcasts. One of the podcasts I was on, we had Chris Wilson, one of the founders of the company. He was on the podcast, which was very generous of him. And after the show, I messaged him to say thanks, and he offered me a job.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And are you US based?
Yeah, I'm actually from right around here. I grew up about 30 minutes outside of Boston.
Okay. Cool. And I know that several people have flown in, New Zealand based company, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It's a long flight.
Yeah, I moved down there to work on the game, so it was a trip to get back, but it was worth it.
Okay. Yeah, the culture shock is when you come back.
At this point, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. Well, thanks for taking a moment to chat with me and talk about it.
Yeah, of course. Happy to.
Excited for the PoE 2?
Very much.
Yeah.
Nervous, worried, but excited. I'm sure people will break it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's part of your job. And I'm sorry, I don't know if we talked about that. You're QA. So
Yeah,
if there's any problems at all with the game, do we have your personal email? We can email you.
Sure. Yeah, I'll get it to you.
Yeah. Okay. It'll be down in the comments. It will not
Yeah.
be down- yeah.
Evidently.
Yeah.